Welcome back, Hyperdrivers. Today I'm going to be talking to you about all the things that you may have missed with Thrawn's Imperial Fleet in this week's episode of Ahsoka, Far, Far Away. But before I get into it, I'm going to be talking heavy spoilers with this episode, so if you have not seen the latest episode of Ahsoka yet, hop on your nearest Purgle and go hide in a galaxy far, far away. All right, are they all gone? For the rest of us, what an episode, right? I loved everything about this one. They expanded the lore, which I thought was really good. The visual effects were top-notch, and we got to see Thrawn! Woo! It was an exciting night. I am very, very happy with everything they've been doing with the show. If the next 2 episodes are as good as the last 3, this is easily going to be the best Star Wars show, at least for me. So in this episode, it's finally revealed where the Purgle took Ezra and Thrawn at the end of Rebels, the planet Peridea, which is the ancient homeworld of the Dothmerian Night Sisters. I mean, talk about some bad luck for Ezra. He leaves one danger zone only to land on a planet controlled by a bunch of dark side using witches.
Not a great plan.
It worked, didn't it? Didn't it?
So the Night Sisters are these force-wielding, dark side using witches. And they use their magic for all kinds of crazy stuff, like being able to enhance beings, making them more stronger, more powerful. They can turn themselves invisible, and they can reanimate the dead. They first appeared in the Star Wars Legends novel, The Courtship of Princess Leia. I first came across them playing the video game Star Wars Galaxies. They were on the planet Dothmere, which was a high-level planet to go to. And let me tell you, they were some bad bitches. They were very tough to beat. George Lucas added them to the Clone Wars animated series, which is where most of you probably know them from. But up until this episode, I have always believed that their homeworld was the planet of Dothmere. Now we come to find out that they come from another galaxy far, far away, the planet Peridea, and they travel to Dothmere, possibly even naming the planet. When Baylan, Shin, and Morgan first arrive, they're greeted by 3 Night Sister witches known as the Great Mothers. Now, these are very similar to the Norns in Norse mythology. We've already seen how Filoni uses a lot of references to Norse mythology in his works. A good example of this in this TV show is the names Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati. Skoll and Hati are the 2 wolves in Norse mythology that chase the sun and the moon, and they're destined to bring about Ragnarok when they capture their prey. The Norns in Norse mythology are 3 giants from Jotunheim. They spun the threads of fate and are responsible for shaping the course of human destinies. Their names are Udra, who saw the past, Verdani, who sees what's happening now, and Skald, who sees the future. In this episode, the Great Mothers talk about not seeing Baylan bringing Sabine as a prisoner, saying that it was a loose thread. But like Yoda states in Empire Strikes Back,
difficult to see. Always in motion is the future.
Which basically means that the future is not set in stone. You know, you don't know if the vision that you're seeing is something that is to come, or if it's something that you're going to do that causes that. Possibly you trying to avoid that future is what very well causes the future. Kind of like what happened to Anakin. You know, he saw his wife dying in that vision. That was his thought of what the future would be, and that fear to try to change that is what ultimately drove him into his own fate. And then later in the episode, they state how the thread of fate has spoken and that the thread of destiny demands it. So they're probably using dark side magic to peer into the future, the present, and the past so that they can advise Thrawn, thus manipulating and controlling his destiny. So the height of this episode is definitely the entrance of Grand Admiral Thrawn. That was super cool. I loved seeing the Star Destroyer and how it dwarfed that tower where everybody was at. It shook the cell that Sabine was in. That was really, really cool. And seeing the Chimera in live action was perfect. One of our viewers, Jedi Order 81, commented on our reaction that while he was watching that episode, the Chimera shook the speakers in his theater room, which I thought was really, really dope. I definitely want to see this in surround sound. So the Chimera is Thrawn's flagship. He's been captaining this ship since he was an Imperial officer all the way through his promotions to Grand Admiral. It's an Imperial Class 1 Star Destroyer similar to the Devastator that we saw at the beginning of Star Wars A New Hope. Its first appearance along with Thrawn in the Legends novel Heir to the Empire, but in the original novel it was an Imperial Class 2 Star Destroyer. The ship could be recognized by Thrawn's Chimera logo on the very bottom of the ship, which was this 3-headed beast. Now, the last time we saw this ship was in Rebels, and it was being whisked away by Purgle. And the Purgle had their tentacles wrapped all around it and destroying the ship. It was going into the command deck, all around the ship, and just really beating it up just before it jumped into lightspeed. So now seeing this in live action and seeing all of the damage that has been repaired over all these years, you know, looks really, really cool. I especially like that rear shot of the ship where you can see their main engine still destroyed from the battle with the Purgle. And it all climaxes into a sweet, sweet nergasm when we see Thrawn himself and his Imperial Fleet. The stormtroopers, now called night troopers. Now I really love the design of these troopers. All of them look super cool. I like how the helmets are cracked and they're using different parts to connect everything together. You got signs of like gold and black and a bunch of different things going on with that armor that looks really, really interesting. Each one of them has a red bandage that's wrapped around their legs or around their arms. You know, some of them going all the way around the waists. I don't think those are bandages that are meant to connect armor. I think the purpose of those is actually to control them, to bring them back to life. I think that these stormtroopers, these night troopers, are undead, and that the Night Sisters brought them back to life to be in Thrawn's army. So I think that's what we're seeing. And one of the evidence of this is the way that the stormtroopers sound when they talk. They don't sound like normal stormtroopers. They sound actually a lot like Merrick, and we all saw what happened to him. So I fully expect that when we see these stormtroopers get killed, that it's going to be a lot like Merrick, and we're going to see that Night Sister magic escape the armor. One last thing that makes me feel like these could be undead troopers is the choice of music being played. There's this organ piano that could be heard, which is a classic trope of horror films. So I really, really believe these are zombie troopers. The captain of his guard looks really cool, very special looking compared to the rest of the troopers. His name is Enoch, which is a biblical name, which means dedicated. It's also the name of the great-grandfather of Noah. Now, the armor is really neat in the face, especially because it kind of reminds me a little bit of a gladiator or a Roman Praetorian. And when he speaks to Sabine as she's leaving and says, "Die well," that also gives me more of those gladiator vibes.
Die well.
Thrawn himself looks incredible. I think they did a fantastic job on the costume and design for him. I like that they recasted Lars Mikkelsen and brought him back from Rebels to reprise the role of Thrawn. That's awesome. Hearing his voice, for those of us who have seen Rebels, I know it was very special. It was a very special moment for me. And it's very chilling to hear his voice, right? And seeing this character now in live action after all this time. So that was really cool. Towards the end of the episode, we see the night troopers hauling these coffins, and I think that's exactly what they are, is coffins. Earlier in the episode, we hear Thrawn talking about how they're transferring cargo as per the agreement with the Great Mothers. Morgan says that she's seen the catacombs and that it would take 3 rotations to complete the task. At first, I thought this could have meant more troopers that are going to be reanimated, but considering that Thrawn has an agreement with the Great Mothers, it makes me feel like these could be other Night Sisters, other dead Night Sisters that are going to be reanimated to life. During the Clone Wars, Count Dooku and General Grievous led an attack on Dathomir and killed off most of the Night Sisters, so there's not very many of them left. Imagine if what they're bringing back is the Night Sisters that died during the Clone Wars. That would be pretty dope, bringing them back to life and having an undead army of Night Sisters that now Ahsoka has to fight. And then finally, at the very, very end of the episode, the Great Mothers tell Thrawn that Ahsoka is coming. And Thrawn asks Morgan for all the information on Ahsoka, including who her master is, which I think this is something that I'm really, really interested to see how this is going to play out for the next episode, because Thrawn knows who Anakin is. He fought with him during the Clone Wars, and he's one of the few people that know that Anakin became Darth Vader. So I'm wondering how he's going to use that against Ahsoka. And that's everything I saw with Thrawn's Imperial Army. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything, and until next time, may the Force be with you.